All right. Hey, everybody. It's Wednesday and it's the 48th Collaboration Zone. Welcome, and we're thrilled to have our final and best session of the day with two amazing people, Robert Richardson and Marilyn Pearson Hendricks, or MPH as many of us call her. So with that, let me pass it over to Marilyn.
Inspiration for today is the what do buyers want? And what Ward had asked us to do, Robert and I, is to do a bit of a walk in the woods on marketing point of view. I'm going to actually expand that out just to call it marketing and sales or smarketing. We adopt that term because the lines there are really blurring as well. Our session description for our virtual collaboration zone today was really, there's a lot that's changing as well, not only in the product side of things, which is infinitely interesting, but also in our sales motions has fundamentally changed. At least that's what I'm seeing. There's a lot of movement, opportunity in the gaps and in the stability. Robert and I are going to do here today is a little bit of riff on this topic and just share what maybe a bit of our insights, which may not always be the same, and hopefully yours as well, and break down the buyer behaviors. And so my name is Marilyn Pearson Hendricks, MPH, and I am the founder of WorkTech Advisory. We work with a team of people and dedicate our daily existence to helping our clients unlock the revenue potential of what they've invented. We remove friction from the sales process and really help with the product market fit finding. And then Robert and I are both in Minneapolis, and we met over 15 years ago, and Robert was working for JobsWeb, which happened to be one of my clients. It was acquired by SuccessFactors and then SAP. We worked on a super interesting project together, combined since then. And we also are volunteers in a local community called Leading Edge Human Resource Network, of which HR Tech Alliances has been a platform sponsor and helped us get reignited as a community. It's been around for over, 20 years. But maybe share a little bit, Robert, about the role that you have with us, and then also on a personal level on some of the things that you're doing outside of.
Hi, everybody. Robert Richardson. For SAP, I'm an HR Tech Strategy Advisor. I like to tease that title means everything and nothing all at the same time. I work with, on average, 100 customers per year. They tend to be enterprise organizations, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200,000 employees. And I help them think through their strategy in relation to HR technologies. And in particular, my areas of deepest focus are recruiting, talent management, and artificial intelligence, which really means I spend 99% of my life on artificial intelligence. So I work AI across the board in HR, even outside of recruiting and talent. That's a bit of what I do for SAP. To answer your other question, Marilyn, outside of SAP, I am an angel investor, and I have been for, going on a decade or 15 years. So for quite some time. I like to say I'm a startup advocate as well, and I spend a lot of time reviewing startups on a regular basis. I see demo after demo, and I'm very happy to help with this topic, given the hundreds of customers I'll see over the course of 5 years, and the kind of startup behavior that I see out there in the environment, and that spans more than just HR. I tend to spend a lot of that time outside of HR, which informs a lot of what I do overall. I also, as she mentioned, work with Learn, Lehrn, if you're looking it up, learn.tech. Marilyn made the very foolish mistake of inviting me to be a regular speaker to help inform that audience where the market of AI is going. And so at each meeting, I host a 40-minute session on the market of AI and topics that people didn't know they needed to know in that area.
Thank you. We are regular collaborators. We've got 3 observations and 3 suggestions. We're going to start with the observations. I think one of the things I'm hearing over and over again is the old methods, email, phone calls, stalking, showing up on their doorstep. All of the ways that salespeople have been using to engage prospective buyers, they're decaying or dead. It's exceedingly difficult to get the headspace of the targets. And so what you do about it is another question, right?
if we were trying to decide whether that person is picking up or putting down the phone, they're definitely
Right.
putting it down.
They're like, you're not on my caller ID, and so I'm not answering.
Did you see the newest feature on the Apple phone? It will screen your calls now. So you have to state your name and who you are before you can reach me when you call me. That's how challenging it is to reach a person now. And if it just started, that's going to become pervasive.
So how do we get in front of our potential buyers? Needless to say that there's a whole lot of creative things that we can do, but the old methods don't work. The old playbook doesn't exist. Second thing is, even though everyone's on the AI bandwagon, AI has complicated decision making for new purchases. In fact, one of the things that Harbinger did is they've engaged with Sapient Insights. They're probably one of the longest standing and one of the best analyst firms in our space. And Stacey Harris, I just went through a briefing yesterday where they did preview for their distributors of research that they've done on the buying behavior. And on one hand, everyone's want AI all the time, everywhere, all the time. Problem with that is that signals risk for the buyer. And so it's added another level of due diligence and scrutiny on the closing side of things. So we're seeing a ton of friction, we're seeing bottleneck, we're seeing slowed down process, actually the budget's moving. And so if you aren't already following Sapient, I'd highly recommend following and that research. If you're part of or becoming a distributor and then spreading the word on their survey, their participation is going way up, but they're doing a massive study on the buying behavior. One of the things is the AI component. This has created friction on the revenue side. Expectations about software investments have changed. The efficiencies and streamlining were considered drivers, but the bar we're being held against in terms of software investments is all about increasing revenue. And they've never seen that happen before. So if I'm investing in a people platform of any kind, will that allow my company to sell to our buyers better? There's obviously more that we could riff about, but in our limited time together, make it a little bit more fun talking about the suggestions. So before I go on, is there anyone else that wants to commiserate before we go into the solutions? Any other points that you might want to make? Robert, anything?
I do, even if I just make a couple points on number 1 and 2. So I think what's really fascinating about the way that you set this up, Marilyn, is if we think between 1 and 2, right? Number 1, the traditional ways may have been phone calls, but we advanced to things like Google ads, Facebook ads, and Twitter ads. Now we've got TikTok, Instagram, Bing, and conferences, all that stuff to juggle. Ignore any of those channels at your peril. The trick is to figure out where your own audience lives and then market inside of those channels. I was thinking about which of those channels are going to become obsolete and when, or will they? Because I think in my mind, what's coming next is like we've had decades of SEO, search engine optimization. When do we get AIO? You know what I mean? I love it. And I don't know that the industry has even settled on a term yet. Like, is it AIO? Is it AEO? I've heard answer engine optimization, generative engine optimization, large language model optimization, AI SEO, just to keep it clean. At some point, you are going to see services rendered just like we did in the early days of search engine optimization to optimize your site to be sure that when somebody asks a question on ChatGPT or Anthropic, you actually show up providing part of the answer to get traffic. So I'd be watching for that. It has become more complicated because everyone is now leveraging AI to ask questions, to get information. Everybody's suddenly an expert, but are they an expert for your product because yours showed up as an example when they asked a question?
I think we probably almost need a whole deep dive on this. What I am seeing in my worldview is I see founders and people that are interested in having conversations with prospects get overly obsessed on email.
Mm.
And so they are using AI to automate the old approach instead of what
Sure.
you just said in terms of highly targeted. This assumes that you know what you are looking for, which is actually a key foundation. Who is your ideal buyer, which is not to be confused with your total addressable market. So usually the mistake that they're making is selling to the TAM with email. They're looking at an old playbook that's really decayed. So
Yeah.
when I get these complaints, yes, there's lots of stuff that we can do, but this is a symptom of an old playbook. These suggestions aren't necessarily the direct antidotes to those things, right? Each one of those are probably deserving of proper discussion in their own right. We are actually doing something called the WorkTech Scaling Series. We have a regular cadence of sharing our insights and the work we're doing regularly with clients, with the community in a digital format. More on that soon. I have 3 suggestions. If we're going to have 3 takeaways of what buyers need, and if we all agree to go a moment longer, what I'd like to do is share a video.
At the time, if somebody else has to leave, too bad. You'll miss it.
All right. So I don't know if you guys remember floppy disks. Back in the late 90s, when I was working for my first software company and ended up in sales, this little video went around, but it got viral actually by putting it in and out of the computers because the file was too big. And then lo and behold, it's on YouTube and it's worthy of conversation. Let me switch over to the video and let's just watch this together for fun. Hopefully you will be able to share this with others.
Are you going to send the disc out to everyone?
You'd like the well disc. It's only 2 minutes, but it's definitely worth it. I've been listening to it since the 90s.
Here at Rockwell Automation's world headquarters, research has been proceeding to develop a line of automation products that establishes new standards for quality, technological leadership, and operating excellence. With customer success as our primary focus, work has been proceeding on the crudely conceived idea of an instrument that would not only provide inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal gram meters. Such an instrument comprised of Dodge gears and bearings, Reliant electric motors, Allen Bradley controls, and all monitored by Rockwell software is Rockwell Automation's retroencabulator. Now basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it's produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive diractance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the 2 spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panametric fam. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus O deltoid type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator. Every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremi pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the gram meters. Moreover, whenever fluorescent score motion is required, it may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal depleneration. The retroencabulator has now reached a high level of development, and it's being successfully used in the operation of Milford trunnions. It's available soon wherever Rockwell Automation products are sold.
I get 2 reactions. Usually business people or end users will immediately break out laughing instantly. If they're technical or technical product, they really pay attention. And it's not until like 1 minute and 50 seconds that they almost start going, what's this? There's a magical phrase that was missing from this video, a few of them anyways. And it's called, this is important because. If we think about what buyers want from us in our industry, it's clarity about the problem that we are solving instead of obsession with what we're doing and how we're doing what we're doing. This is the language of the buyer. Most websites that I audit, they're missing on their key menu, even in their LinkedIn description, the problem we solve is. We've got language and clarity along those lines. So this is a good indicator, Alan, as you're looking at your targets. Can anyone understand what they're doing without the technobabble from a retroencabulator? And it's simple, but it's not easy. If we think about as an industry and the work that we do, it's peeling back those things to the essence. It's like when Steve Jobs was selling, he wasn't the first to market a device that had a hard drive that played music. Creative Labs actually had one of the first ones. But they said, we offer 10,000 songs in your pocket He didn't go into how it was built, but what the innards were. There's lots of stories about this, but if I were giving advice, what do buyers want and what do they really need from us? It is that. Robert, in all the demos that you sit in, you see more fabulous clarity on the problem.
I have appreciated, I guess, not just SAP, but my mentors throughout my entire career, which you've been one of them, Marilyn. The project that we started at Jobs to Web was in part exactly what you're talking about, defining what is the real customer problem that we are going to resolve and figuring out how to communicate with them. So even if I think through the Learn series that I'm doing, every Learn meeting we have, my top goal is to take some interesting thing you never thought about in AI that is challenging for people who haven't touched it yet, and then communicate it in a way that is well understood by anybody who walked into that room. I would say it's both clarity about the problem that you're trying to resolve, but going back to the video, it's also knowing that you need to communicate in a way that people can understand, and that has to scale. If you're talking to a technical person, either put them in front of a technical person who can communicate that way or do it yourself. If you're talking to a business user, you have to adjust the way that you speak to each user in the communications realm. You have to know which piece to communicate. Just because you know the whole iceberg worth of challenge doesn't mean that they need to know everything underneath the surface. When you're an expert in something, you feel as though you have to convey every little detail. It's dangerous because you lose the people you're communicating with. You just got to find the tip of that iceberg and communicate that piece.
Robert, you're probably conscious competent in that. And so what we've got in the attempts at communicating capability is unconscious competence.
I have that grid in my head, work to recall what it was like to learn whatever it is that I'm conveying now, so that you have that conscious competency and you can go back and teach people because you remember the struggle that you had in learning the topic.
This is important because
100%.
Right.
Do you think AI will help bring a resurgence to consultative selling?
I hope so. It's a great question whether those involved in the sales motion take full advantage. One of my clients right now is taking conversational intelligence, taking every single discovery call, and the chief product officer is examining every call. As far as the market research available from every sales call, the agility for product problem market fit, it's quite interesting to see that going from not paying attention at all, it was going right to demo, to basically now a close examination of the sales stages. And one of the things that I'm seeing right now that didn't exist in the United States, certainly more in the enterprise area, which is where my background is mainly from, what we are getting now as well, which is a bit new in the United States, not other geos, is try before we buy, in some way, shape, or limited scale. If we're going to do that as a provider, a seller of technology, what does great look like? There's 1,000 sales movements that happen from the moment that an offer is tendered or accepted to do a trial, pilot, or partial, all the way through how that pilot is evaluated. The skill set there is massive opportunity to differentiate in sales motions. We're selling potentially identical products. If you can think it, you can code it. The code is not the moat anymore. The ability to adapt to changing business requirements is the secret sauce for the provider. Still about trust. At the end of the day, whatever it is, because those of us in the room here have been through a whole bunch of changes in technology du jour, but the sales motions right now I'm seeing fundamentally changed. I don't know if, Robert, you're running into that at all. Maybe not on the SAP level because of the nature of the beast, but more of the edge cases.
I feel like my life is bifurcated or just split on this front. At SAP, we're not really a try before you buy company. Oftentimes, the strategies you deploy require serious time in terms of deployment and strategy. There's just too much there that costs real time and money to do that. However, in my startup life, this is pervasive and it's a smart model, I think, because oftentimes if you can just get the user starting, they see the value and you're off to the races. Marilyn, you said something really interesting before that. You said coding is not the moat anymore. It's a fascinating statement. Not only is it relevant here, but if you look at the future and this kind of try before you buy stuff and the different ways that we are going to buy and build as well. This whole world is changing. It's going to be fascinating. Did you see that Claude rebuilt Slack in 30 hours?
Without their permission?
30 hours, this thing coded itself and rebuilt Slack. Now, Ward, to your point, they were doing it as a demonstration. I don't think it's anything they're selling. I've been saying for years now that your sales and marketing motions are often your differentiators. In a world where the difference between your solution and somebody else's is 10%, the question boils down to how well did you do positioning it?
It's changed again. It's now an old SaaS playbook, literally gone. The foundations of good practices are fundamental. All right, let's go to number 3. This is actually the project that Robert and I worked on, but it was like Groundhog Day all over again. That was 2012, I think it was. But the idea here is that we're not just communicating what we do and how we do it and educating the buyer and giving them a proposal. It's giving them the ammunition to sell when you're not in the room. And so the business case that we produce, with or without a trial, we can make conclusions about a broader workforce from that, controlling the conversation. This is more than about the capabilities and the features of the RFP. It's how do we put it inside of a big repo.
And how do you position it for the business, not your line of business? If that makes sense.
Right,
yeah.
Connected to revenue.
I always say you have 3 levers. If you don't pull one of them, you don't deserve to be in this process. And that is you get revenue, cost reductions, or reduced risk. And if you don't hit one of those 3 categories, what are you doing here? The fact that you save HR people a certain amount of admin time is fantastic to HR, but the business does not care how hard they run on that wheel until they find out that it saves money, it produces revenue, or reduces risk.
That's a good way to end at the top of the hour because we all have other meetings to run to. Thank you, Ward, for having us. It's an honor to be on this journey and have this discussion with this amazing group here today. Thank you, Robert, for being my partner in crime for all these years.
Always.
So,
Thank you, Marilyn, Robert,
you.
and everyone for joining in. The questions has been a great day, and hopefully you'll see you in the next collaboration zone or maybe one of the weekly town halls on Fridays.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Marilyn. It was awesome.
Special thanks to Marilyn and Robert for delivering a fabulous discussion on timely topics. Also thanks to our event sponsor, Harbinger Group, one of the founding members of the HR Tech Alliance's community platform. A huge shout out to our 2,000 plus members, especially our founding and corporate members for their continuing support of the HR Tech Alliance's community platform. It's our subscribing members who provide the primary funding that powers our community platform and empowers our mission.